Tim, good to have you back with us on the podcast, mate.
Good to be here, Jace.
We are talking about your column, A Hymn to Handwriting. Now, my handwriting's not so great. You mention in the column, or I guess own up to the fact that yours isn't so great. Why?
Mate, it's like a doctor's handwriting, and those are those are famously bad. But
Yes.
a doctor who's been self-medicating.
Oh, no.
So it's
beyond
beyond illegible.
Yeah. So why write a column on A Hymn to Handwriting?
Because handwriting, for me, and I thought that, I'm just this lonely, cursive tragic. Like I love handwriting to interrogate an idea. I have to write it down. To actually get an idea inside my head, I have to remember it. I have to write it down. And look, the second novel that I published, I actually hand wrote it, 40,000 words. The first draft, because I felt it helped me think more creatively, and it helped me to produce something that was quite unique. Now, I thought that I was just some saddo.
Well,
with a pen.
maybe it's a Maxim thing, because I've seen a few pens being given out here recently.
That's true.
So, and we all keep journals and take notes and paper and stuff like that.
Often during meetings. But what's been interesting was recently a Ministerial Advisory Group said that handwriting should be a compulsory part of the curriculum, and this was their advice to Education Minister Erica Stanford. And the reason that they said that is, to quote them, only handwriting activates and strengthens the brain's orthographic mapping pathways. So the words get into here via our bodies. We're creatures of the body, Jason.
What? We're not disembodied?
We're not. No, we're not just free-floating ether.
But that's interesting, because it seems like, kids all need Chromebooks when they go to school, like year ones and twos. Our kids, when they were in year 1 and 2, used iPads. Then they've got year 3 onwards Chromebooks. They've got to have Google Docs, and they submit everything
right, you're
online.
saying technology
It's kind of the wave of the future, right?
Is the wave of the future. And I'm not saying, don't use technology, but what's the basis for that technology? What's the basis for the education experience? And look, Sweden were a country who had said, okay, we've got to prioritize digitization. That rules. That's what we need to get our kids involved in. But last year, they went back to a curriculum that involves pencils and paper, reading actual books, and quiet time, because they were finding that the educational outcomes weren't what they had expected. And indeed, there's a Swedish organisation, the Karolinska Institute, has said there's clear scientific evidence that digital tools impair rather than enhance student learning. Again, this goes back to, it's a fundamental question. Who are we? What are we made up of? Well, we're body, mind, and soul. So handwriting is the pathway to get ideas via the body into the mind and the soul.
Yeah. So it's more than just tap, tap, tap. The digits appear on the screen, or taking a video, or recording some audio or something like that. If we actually take the time to write it out, process it, it somehow gets into our brains more. Well,
this is what the evidence that the Ministerial Advisory Group said, and particularly it's not just them. Dr. Nina Hood from the Education Hub has said that in those first years at primary school, the focus really should be on handwriting. So it's not just a part of the curriculum, and there's been some pushback from teachers for that Ministerial Advisory Group report. There's a number of other recommendations, annual testing, etc., that have sort of muddied the water, so to speak, about that. But what Nina Hood, Dr. Hood, is saying, and she's a well-respected researcher, is that it should be not just one of the things in the curriculum, and the curriculum's already pretty jam-packed. That's part of the problem, I think, for teachers, and why you're seeing such pushback from teachers. But it should be a focus because of its crucial importance. So look, our kids already do it. Do they do it enough?
Yeah. So that, I was going to say, that's the question, because I thought it was. You're saying it's part of the curriculum. They all learn to do handwriting, but it's not necessarily an important or a vital focus of the curriculum. It's not compulsory.
Yeah. So, and that's what the Ministerial Advisory Group was recommending. And again, that sense of actually getting kids to train their bodies to feed their brains, I think it's a good building block. The other thing I'd say about handwriting is one of the great things. It's like, okay, so you write something down, then you scrub it out. So actually being, because you described, say, video or speaking, I don't think you can fully, or you're fully capable of being able to talk unless you can write first. Now, some people can write without, talk without writing, but I always note that when I see people who are, say, when broadcasters write stuff down, there's always, I can tell, and I'm not being a snob here, but I can tell that that's what they do, whereas when writers write stuff down, there's this, I guess there's a sense of the dynamics of the page more readily expressed.
Well, you've hit on some philosophical ideas there about us embodying our, being embodied and the brain and the body connecting and the way that we can organize things when we write them down. Are there other philosophical reasons that we might want to bring back handwriting?
Well, it's to locate us where we are. So we're at sea in a tsunami of information at the moment.
TikToks and Snapchats and Instagrams.
And links, websites, etc. I mean, by the way...
Even just the news website is overwhelming
FYI,
at times.
never send me a link. It's not going to be helpful. I've got enough links. Handwrite something and mail it to me, and then I will read it. I actually have a friend in the UK who handwrites me letters, and I can tell you, I read those.
They get read,
and I handwrite them, handwrite replies and send them back. Actually, must send. Sorry, Arthur. But to that point, that and the sociologist Sherry Turkle calls this the culture of forever elsewhere. Oh, wow. So we're not where we are physically, we're some other place that's described for us or is represented on the internet.
So we're kind of disembodied in the sense that we're sitting here holding our phones physically, but mentally.
Well, meanwhile, our kids could be saying, "Hey, Dad, look at me. It's like you're on your phone."
Yeah, scroll.
Yeah, scroll.
Yeah.
And there's a sort of sense of agitation and restlessness and anxiety. Well, often when you write stuff down, the stuff goes away. So I guess, and again. This is some of my cursive tragic experience, but I think as the Ministerial Advisory Group has pointed out, it's applicable and indeed necessary for kids in the education curriculum.
Well, Tim, you did make one promise here that if we bring it back, you'll write more legibly. I'm not sure we should be making promises we can't keep, but thanks for being with us today, mate.
Well, let's bring it back and I'll try, I promise. What's your handwriting like? Mine's terrible, like a doctor's. A doctor who's been using their own medication. My scribbles are so wretched that even I sometimes struggle to read them. Loops, smears, and burnouts desecrate the pages I inscribe. Yet, I'm a big fan of cursive. I handwrote the first draft of my second novel, Newspigs, around 40,000 words scrawled across a series of notebooks. Why? Handwriting helps me think and create. To internalize a fact, I need to write it down. To interrogate an idea, first I must transcribe it. Naturally, I believe handwriting should be a compulsory part of our curriculum. To my surprise and excitement, a Ministerial Advisory Group recently made the same recommendation to Education Minister Erica Stanford. The reason? To improve literacy, our kids would be encouraged to write by hand as much as possible in the first 3 years of school. Only handwriting activates and strengthens the brain's orthographic mapping pathway, their report said, adding, the importance of writing by hand must be made clear to teachers, and this may represent quite a change for teachers in some schools. Confession? These words are being tapped out on a Hewlett-Packard keyboard, laboriously and in an uncoordinated manner. I miss my pen. The report added that teacher buy-in was necessary for this and other changes, including annual testing, to be successfully implemented. Now that may prove rather elusive. The New Zealand Education Institute's Mark Potter said he had, quote, no confidence in the advisory group's recommendations and that they were written, quote, without any broad consultation within the sector, close quote. There's more. The New Zealand Association of Teachers of English head, Pip Tinning, called the report, quote, outdated, not forward-thinking, and not fit for purpose in our day and age, close quote marks. Indeed, the technology argument is often ventured. Kids no longer require pens and paper. They need Chromebooks. The future is digital. Only it isn't. Not in Sweden, which used to prioritise digitisation of education. Last year, Swedish kids returned to a curriculum that included actual books, quiet time, and yes, handwriting. There's clear scientific evidence that digital tools impair rather than enhance learning, according to Sweden's Karolinska Institute. Moreover, a recent study of over 500 school kids in Perth found they produced longer and higher quality handwritten texts using pencil and paper, based on criteria such as ideas, vocabulary, and spelling. Dr. Nina Hood, founder of the Education Hub, insists, in those first years at primary school, the focus really should be on handwriting. May I suggest there's a philosophic aspect to this also? Thanks to the internet, we are at sea in a tsunami of information, disembodied, paralysed, only buoyed by the dopamine hits from complaints on social media, which are typed. Sociologist Sherry Turkle calls this culture forever elsewhere. Let's help our kids be more present by holding a pen that connects their thoughts to their bodies. Clearly, the debate is just beginning and will require concessions. I'll make a small one. Should handwriting become compulsory? I'll write more legibly. Promise.